BJ Mafia, what's poppin'? So Jags fans, we just concluded the 2023 NFL draft this past weekend, and the Jaguars had over a dozen selections. If you want to be exact, the Jaguars took 13 players in this year's draft, and there was a lot of mixed emotions with Jags fans, especially on Twitter. And look, I did the best I could to keep myself composed this weekend. There was a lot of moves that I wanted to make, and there was a lot of players that I wanted us to select, but nonetheless, I trust Doug Peterson, I trust Trent Baalke to continue to build this roster. But Jags fans, we have a lot of players to talk about in today's video, so I kind of want to jump right into this. But before I do, if you guys could, please go ahead and drop me a thumbs up. It takes 1 second and it helps me and the channel out tremendously. Make sure that you guys also hit that subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Jaguars content that I do here on YouTube. And make sure you guys also go ahead and follow me on my socials, especially on Twitter. I'm very active and I'm on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below, so you guys can go ahead and check that out. But Jags fans, before I really get into talking about Anton Harrison and the Jaguars first round selection, let's actually go over our entire draft class. I'll put the graphic up on the screen for you guys to go ahead and check out. So round 1, pick 27, we took offensive tackle Anton Harrison from Oklahoma. Then we went Brenton Strange, tight end from Penn State. Tank Bixby, running back from Auburn. Ventrell Miller, linebacker from Florida. Tyler Lacey, edge from Oklahoma State. Yasir Abdullah, edge from Louisville. Cornerback from Texas A&M, Antonio Johnson, who a lot of Jags fans, including myself, like. Parker Washington, wide receiver from Penn State. Cornerback from Rutgers, Christian Braswell. Safety from Pittsburgh, Eric Hallett II. Offensive tackle from Appalachian State, Cooper Hodges. Defensive tackle from UNC, Raymond Vohasek. If I mispronounce your name, please excuse me. I'm trying to get better and it's going to take me some time. And edge from Houston, Derek Parrish. So the Jaguars went ahead and took Anton Harrison with the first round pick at number 27 overall, offensive tackle from the University of Oklahoma. And Anton Harrison comes in at 6'4", 315 pounds. He has 34-inch arms, so he's got the frame and the size that really kind of fits the bulky mold. Only missed 1 game in the last 2 years, so he's been extremely durable, knock on wood. And Anton Harrison is probably the most underrated tackle in this year's draft class, and I'm not even saying that as a homer take. When you look at the other offensive tackles like Paris Johnson, DeJuan Jones, and a handful of others that were selected above him, I think Anton Johnson has got a lot more of a refined technique, and he's got the size and athleticism that you want to see, especially now when you look at the depth of Cam Robinson, who's going to be suspended for the beginning part of the season, Walker Little, Anton Harrison, Ben Barch, Brandon Scherf, Luke Fortner, and the list goes on. The Jaguars have a very solidified offensive line now, and I think Anton Harrison is going to be a great fit for this Jaguars team, especially protecting Trevor Lawrence, aka Mr. Sunshine's blind side. Talking about what Anton Harrison did this past season as a junior at Oklahoma, in 12 games this season, 862 snaps. He only allowed 8 quarterback hurries, no quarterback hits, and only allowed 1 sack at left tackle. And in the last 2 seasons combined, he's only allowed 1 QB hit. He's been phenomenal for what he did for the Oklahoma Sooners these last couple of seasons. And Jags fans, I did make an entire full breakdown video of Anton Harrison. I went through some film and I really talked about his strengths and what he did really well, and I went into a lot more depth with Anton Harrison. Because I'm making a full breakdown video of our entire draft class, I'm not going to go too deep with Anton Harrison. If you guys want to go ahead and check out that video, I will go ahead and link to it up above for you guys to go ahead and check out. Now with the Jaguars second round pick, we took Brenton Strange, tight end from Penn State. Now this was an extremely strange pick, no pun intended, that a lot of Jaguar fans did not see coming. Daniel Jeremiah, NFL analyst, did say that this is probably the most underrated player in this year's draft class, and I do think Brenton Strange is a lot better than his stats really show. Brenton Strange comes in at 6'4", 270 pounds. He ran a 4.7 40 this past season at the Combine, and in 12 games this past season, he had 32 catches, 362 yards, and 5 touchdowns, and had a 135 quarterback rating when targeted. That is an incredible catch radius that he provides for a quarterback. But my thing with Brenton Strange is I don't think in the Penn State offense he really got that many looks. You can tell he's a very solid target and he's got good hands. I don't think his route tree is quite all the way there yet, but I do trust Doug Peterson's analysis of tight ends, and especially when the Jaguars are in such a run-dominant offense when it comes to tight ends, except for really Evan Ingram. You're going to ask these guys like Evan Ingram, like Brenton Strange, like Luke Farrell, and the list goes on, these tight ends to really do a lot of run blocking and to provide that two personnel lineup that the Jaguars could desperately use. And I think Brenton Strange is going to be a solid tight end. I think he's going to get a lot of red zone looks, and I think he's just another big body in there that the Jaguars can continue to develop. I don't really have as much of an issue with this pick. I definitely wasn't expecting us to take a tight end in the second round, but Brenton Strange does provide some good stuff that I would like to see him continue to develop on this season. Now moving into the third round, the Jaguars took running back out of Auburn, Tank Bixby, and if you guys know anything about Bixby, I literally chuckled the moment I heard that name because all I could think about was Dave Chappelle, which if you know, you know. I won't get into it, but I thought that was pretty funny. But Tank Bixby comes in at 6 feet tall, 210 pounds. He ran a 4.56 at the combine, but his pro day, he ran a 4.45 at the pro day, which I think is a lot better and it fits more of his game tape. But Tank Bixby this past season at Auburn in 12 games ran for 976 yards on the ground on 178 attempts. So that was great efficiency, 5.5 yards per carry. He had 10 touchdowns, and he also contributed in the receiving game, 30 catches for 180 yards. A couple things I noticed about Tank Bixby, I think he's extremely twitchy fast. He's got good speed, not great speed, but he's got good acceleration coming out of the backfield. He hits the holes relatively well for being a relatively undersized guard. He's got great agility. He does great with his cutback speed. But I will say he's not a 3-down or a power back. He's really never going to be that. He's not really a workhorse. But I do think that him kind of being a change of pace back with guys like JaMychal Hasty, Travis Etienne, Dearness Johnston, we've got a very solidified running back core and a great backfield to work with. Tank Bixby's going to come in, and I think he would make some solid contributions. You can essentially count Snoop Conner out the door. Moving into the fourth round, the Jaguars took linebacker from the University of Florida, Lavonte Miller, who comes in at 6 feet tall, 232 pounds, ran a 4.7 140, but in 586 snaps, he had 64 tackles, 18 assists, and 40 stops. In coverage, he had 2 pass breakups, 0 interceptions, and had a horrible 125.8 quarterback rating when targeted. But as a pass rusher, he did much better than he did in pass coverage. He had 16 pressures, 12 quarterback hurries, 4 QB hits, no sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. A couple of things I noticed from Ventrell Miller when going back over his tape, and even though I am a big diehard Gator fan, I don't recall much of him from watching a lot of Gator games this season because he didn't really flash out onto the screen too much to me. But going back watching his tape, he's extremely aggressive when it comes to pursuing the ball. I think that's something that I noticed from him a lot. He's going to provide a lot of great plays in pass rush coverages that the Jaguars desperately need as they continue to rotate out pass rushers. He's not going to really be a Mike linebacker like we kind of saw from him in that 4-3 defense at Florida. I see him a lot more as a Will and just a rotational edge rusher. He can come in, make some QB hurries, and really do some disruption because his IQ is not quite all the way there when it comes to his play recognition. He's definitely a liability in pass coverage, as you can see from some of these plays that I showed versus Kentucky. But I do think that he's going to come in, make some solid contributions, especially on special teams, and he can definitely on defense contribute in the pass rushing department. Ventrell Miller, not horribly mad with this pick. I don't think that we needed another linebacker after having Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma taken very high in last year's draft. But Ventrell Miller, I'm going to support my Gators and I'm going to support my team. Welcome to Jacksonville. Now moving into the next pick, the Jaguars took edge from Oklahoma State, Tyler Lacey. Now Tyler Lacey comes in at 6'4", 279 pounds and ran a 5'11" 40. The man is a freak of nature. He's a man amongst boys. Let's just put it like that. This guy is an absolute unit out there on the field. And in 2022, as a senior in 9 games, he played in 451 snaps. He had 14 tackles, 13 assists, 14 stops, and as a pass rusher, had 17 pressures, 9 quarterback hurries, 5 QB hits, and 3 sacks. What I noticed from him is he's got a great motor. He's got extremely great upper body strength, and you see that with his 279-pound strength that he possesses. Now, I do think he does have to be a lot more of a refined pass rusher. He's got to continue to work on that, but I do like the depth, and hopefully he can turn into something. I'm not really sure, but Tyler Lacey, welcome to Jacksonville. Now moving into the next pick, this was a sneaky good late round pick for the Jaguars. They get edge rusher or outside linebacker from the University of Louisville, Yasir Abdullah. He comes in at 6'1", 237 pounds. He ran a 4.47 at the 40. This guy is extremely explosive and athletic. When you go back and watch his tape and you really look back at the numbers at what he did for the Cardinals this past season, Yasir Abdullah, as a fifth-year senior in 2022, had 703 snaps in 12 games. He recorded 36 tackles, 15 of those assisted, 34 stops, and in coverage, he's a phenomenal coverage linebacker, had 1 pass breakup, 2 interceptions, and had an impressive 46.8 quarterback rating when targeted. And as a pass rusher, he was phenomenal as well too. He had 59 quarterback pressures, 29 QB hurries, 14 QB hits, and 9 sacks, including 4 forced fumbles as well. Yasir Abdullah is extremely twitchy, extremely explosive. He finishes through contact very well and does a great job pursuing the ball. I do think he's got good lateral movement, and he does a great job with play recognition for the most part. There were some times I did see him get burnt, especially on some play action quarterback rollouts. But for the most part, he does a great job, and he does a great job in pass coverage. That was very evident through the tape that I watched. The one thing I will say that he definitely needs to work on is continuing to disengage with offensive linemen, because he does get eaten up on the edge when he's trying to set the edge and trying to set a gap in these run concepts. He's not getting a lot of disengagement with these offensive linemen. He's got to do better with that. He's got to do better getting more into the weight room, even though he's extremely explosive. But I do think that he is a very good and raw talented athlete. I think he can make a huge surprise for a lot of Jags fans. And per PFF for Yasir Abdullah, in 306 pass rushing snaps, he had 59 pressures, 11 sacks if you include the bowl games, 15 quarterback hits, 36 run stops, and had a 90.8 pass rushing grade. Phenomenal job by him. Now getting into another late round pick that Jags fans, including myself, absolutely loved. Antonio Johnson, safety from Texas A&M. He comes in at 6'2", 198 pounds. He ran a 4.52 40, and in 2022, in 9 games that he played this past season, 582 snaps, he recorded 55 tackles, 16 assists, and had 28 stops. In pass coverage, he had no pass breakups, no interceptions, and gave up a 91.2 quarterback rating when targeted. So that I would say that's pretty middle of the pack, but he did have 7 pressures and 1 QB sack coming from the edge over on the nickel. And the nice thing with Antonio Johnson is he's a very versatile safety. I've seen him play a lot of single high safety when I went back and watched the tape at A&M. He also played over 25% of his snaps inside the box, and you saw him line up in the nickel more often than not. Antonio Johnson's a very good athlete. He's not great, but I do think he does possess a lot of the quality trait and tools that you want to see at the next level, especially if the Jaguars are going to throw him or Trey Herndon out there as the nickel week 1. It's going to be interesting to see how he continues to develop, because he is a very good athlete. And while Antonio Johnson can struggle sometimes in the open field making some tackles, I do think for the most part he is an above average tackler for being a player in the secondary, and he's got a lot of physicality that you see in his game, makes a great pursuit on the ball, and is consistently somewhere around the ball, whether it's in his vicinity or not. I think Antonio Johnson's a really good player. I'm extremely excited to see how he develops into his rookie season. Now, it might sound like a broken record, but another late round pick that it sounds like Jags fans on Twitter are very excited about is wide receiver from Penn State, Parker Washington. So Parker Washington comes in at 5'10", 204 pounds. He ran a 4.49 at the 40. And a lot of Jags fans are comparing Parker Washington to Christian Kirk because they both primarily play in the slot, and Parker Washington really has a very similar game style and playing style to a guy like Christian Kirk from what I saw from him very briefly. Now, like I said, Parker Washington is primarily a slot receiver, but he did play 25% of his snaps as an outside receiver this year for the Nittany Lions. And in 10 games this season in 2022, he recorded 46 receptions, 611 yards, had 2 touchdowns, and had an 89.9 quarterback rating when targeted. Per PFF, Parker Washington recorded a 76.7 receiving grade and hauled in 70% of his targets. I do think he's got a great frame. He does a great job high pointing the ball. And I'm not exactly sure if he's going to take over wide receiver 4 responsibilities quite yet. I would still give that to Jamal Agnew, who's a lot more familiar with this offense, and I think he does a lot more in terms of versatility for this offense when you talk about misdirection, jet sweeps coming out of the backfield, and even some of his receiving skills. I think Jamal Agnew really has that kind of level of chemistry and continuity that you see right now with Trevor Lawrence. And look, man, I'm going to be a bit biased because, look, man, I love Jamal Agnew. Me and all my homies, we love Jamal Agnew. Jamal Agnew is a top 2, not 2, special team player in the entire NFL, best returner in the NFL if you ask me. He's still one of the more versatile and dynamic offensive players in the game if you ask me, and I think Parker Washington's really gonna have to earn that. Of course, I'm pulling for my guys, but I'm extremely excited to see how he develops into his rookie season as well too, because I know a lot of Jags fans really like him. Now, getting into these last couple of draft picks for the Jaguars, I would like to preface my comments by saying that a lot of these guys, it's really hard to get a lot of film or anything on these guys too though, but I'm gonna do my best to really give you guys as much information as I possibly can. Getting into this next pick, we got Christian Braswell from Rutgers. He comes in at 5'10", 181 pounds. He ran a 4.45 at the 40. Per PFF in 2022, Christian Braswell in 12 games recorded 30 tackles, he had 4 assists, and in pass coverage, he had 3 interceptions, 8 passes broken up, and had an 87.1 pass coverage grade, so doing a very good job there. And he only allowed a 58.5% completion percentage when targeted by opposing quarterbacks. Getting into the next pick, we got safety from Pittsburgh, Eric Hallett the second. He comes in at 5'9", 195 pounds, so a little bit undersized, but in his 4-year career with the Panthers, he recorded 165 tackles, 22 pass deflections, and had 7 interceptions. This past season for the Pittsburgh Panthers, he recorded 44 tackles, had 5 assists. In pass coverage, he had 3 interceptions, 7 pass breakups, had a 77.8 pass coverage grade, and only allowed a 49.1% completion percentage when targeted, doing a great job by him. Getting into the next pick, I got Cooper Hodges, offensive tackle from Appalachian State, who comes in at 6'4", 311 pounds. He ran a 5'11", 40, had 29 reps on the bench press, and in 2022, he saw action in 12 games this past season, had 838 snaps. He allowed 7 quarterback hurries, 2 QB hits, and had 1 sack when playing right tackle. And then per PFF, in 428 pass blocking snaps, he had a 78.4 pass blocking grade, did a lot better job in the run blocking department. In 410 run blocking snaps, he had an 87.3 run blocking grade. Getting into the last 2 picks for the Jaguars, we got Raymond Vahasek. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Vahasek? Yes, Vahasek, defensive lineman from UNC. Like I said, if I did mispronounce that, please bear with me. He comes in at 6'2", 310 pounds. He ran a 5'1" at the 40. And in 2022, he only appeared in 5 games because he did have an upper body injury, which I could not find the information on that, but it was a season-ending injury for him. But in those 5 games, he had 173 snaps, recorded 10 tackles, had 5 assists, 8 stops, and as a pass rusher, he had 4 QB pressures, 3 quarterback hurries, 1 QB hit, and no sacks, but he did have a 72.8 pass rushing grade and a 56.8 run defensive grade. Now getting into the Jaguars' very last pick, we got edge from the University of Houston, Derek Parrish, who comes in at 6'2", 241 pounds. He ran a 4.62 at the 40, had 27 reps in the bench press, and when I tell you this is a man amongst boys, I know I said that earlier about Tyler Lacey. This guy's an absolute unit. Go and read some of the reports on him. This guy's a freaking animal, what he did this past season. Just in the weight room, Derek Parrish power cleans 426 pounds, back squats 674, and benches 425 for 3 reps. This guy's insane. But when we're talking about on the field this past season, and he only appeared in 4 games, he had 204 snaps, recorded 12 tackles, 2 assists, and 13 stops. As a pass rusher, this guy's insane. 26 pressures, 17 quarterback hurries, 3 QB hits, and 6 sacks in just 4 lone games. This guy is ridiculous. And if you want to compare these numbers, let's actually compare what he did in those 4 games to Will Anderson Jr., the number 3 overall pick in Will Anderson Jr.'s entire 2022 campaign. So Derek Parrish this past season had a 91.2 pass rush grade. Will Anderson Jr. only had an 85.8. Parrish had a 75.7 run defensive grade compared to Will Anderson's 86.7. But when you compare that to PFF's overall defensive grade, Derek Parrish had a 91 grade on the season in his 4 lone games. Will Anderson Jr. had an 83.6. And that's just for some context, just for some perspective. You know, take that with a grain of salt. But this guy, I don't know what to say, but I'm extremely excited to see what this guy can do. I don't know if he makes the roster, but this guy's a unit. But Jaguar fans, to kind of wrap up this draft recap video and this breakdown, let me just kind of say a few things. That one, I'm very pleased with the way the Jaguars really loaded up on depth even though the Jaguars kind of disappointed me and a lot of people by not really trading up to go and get some more blue chip talent and guys like Joey Porter Jr., Brian Branch, Osiris Torrance, the list goes on, right? There was plenty of guys that the Jaguars could have potentially gone up and traded for, but like Trent Baalke said, they did reach out the 10 to 12 teams in order to try to trade up, but it takes two to tango. The other team has to always agree to that. But the Jaguars did a great job loading up on depth. I do think that there are some guys in this class that could potentially turn into something big time for the Jaguars, especially when you go down the board. When you talk about guys like Tank Bixby, Parker Washington, Tyler Lacey possibly, and a guy I'm very high on, like Jaguar fans are, is Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M. But Jags fans, this was a solid draft. I'm gonna give it a B. I'm gonna give it a B or a B plus if I'm being generous, because I do think that the Jaguars could have gotten a lot more impact players, but they did get some guys that are gonna contribute on special teams. These guys all, I think, have a chance to compete in the secondary, and especially with the pass rushers. These guys really are gonna get an opportunity in training camp and throughout OTAs to really showcase their worth. But Jags fans, I wanna hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below on this Jaguars draft class. What did you guys make of it? And please tell me also your favorite late round pick. I'm gonna say for me, I know you guys are probably gonna say Antonio Johnson. I'm gonna go on a little bit of a risky one. I'm gonna say Ventrell Miller maybe turns into a solid pass rusher for the Jaguars. That's gonna be my risky late round pick for the Jaguars because I'm not gonna take the easy way out. But Jags fans, like I said, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. And Jags fans, if you guys did enjoy today's video, make sure you guys go ahead and drop me a thumbs up. It takes 1 second and it helps me and the channel out tremendously. And make sure you guys go ahead and hit that subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Jaguars content that I do here on YouTube. And make sure you guys also go ahead and follow me on my socials, especially on Twitter. I'm very active and I'm on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below. But Jags fans, thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, AKA BJ, I'm out, y'all. Go Jags, baby. Peace.